All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unpack This. I am Gloria Bailey Ray, the Authentic Coach, and we are in season 2 of the women's series titled The Unlearning. And this is where we stop dressing things up and start telling the truth. Today, we're unpacking why you're still holding on to something that has already ended, right? So, we're going to be talking about closure. Closure is a myth. And I say, you just don't like the ending. And that's what we're going to talk about. And I always say it's about us being real here, women. This is what we sometimes, you know, how you can hear something, but you need to hear it again and again. So that's why I want to talk about in this series of The Unlearning about closure. I think we all have been there. And I say this because a lot of you have basically been waiting for closure, right? You are holding on like it's something that someone else is supposed to hand you. And what do I mean by that? You're looking for them to hand you an explanation, an apology, a conversation even. And let me just say this plain. Closure is a myth. Just let that sit there with you because closure, it's a myth. The problem is you just don't like how it ended. That's the reality. Let's talk for a moment about what people think closure is. I'll define it for you, in my opinion. It's when people say, I need closure, what they think they mean is, I need answers. I need to understand why. I need them to acknowledge what they did. And some of you may see closure as, I just need one last conversation. Right? They believe in their mind that once you get that you can move on, right? But I want to challenge that. Why? Closure is not information, it's acceptance. And most people aren't looking just for closure. What they are looking for is for relief. Yeah, I said that. For relief. Okay? Now, let me, I guess I would say, let's go beyond the romance piece of it because I've waited for closure before. And it wasn't just in relationships, but, and I know a lot of you can relate to this, but I was looking for closure from a boss who dismissed my work. You guys feel me on that? Or how about a coworker who switched up on me? Yeah, been there, done that. Or a coworker who took credit. We're working as a team. I'm doing all the work, but they took, you know, they said, hey, I did all this. So they actually took all of the accolades and they didn't do anything. Or how about that friend who just stopped showing up? They didn't show up the same way you showed up. You don't understand why, right? Well, I remember thinking if I could just sit down with them and if they would just explain to me, or better yet, if they would just acknowledge, any of you relate to that? I've been there, done that. Yes. And that's why we're talking about closure. You want them to acknowledge, and you say to yourself, if they did these things, then I could move on. But let me just tell you, that conversation, it never came. And for those of you that are sitting here right now still waiting for that, it's not going to come. Why do I say that? Because what I had to face was this, plain and simple. I was waiting for them to give me something they were never going to give. Do I need to say that again? Some of you are waiting for something. You think that they're going to give you something, and you're not going to get it. Plain and simple. All right? And let me just say this. Let me get down to the nitty-gritty. Let me talk about how this show, unpack this, how it shows up. Because one of the things that some of you have done and continue to do, you keep texting that individual, right? You're trying to clear the air. How about you're replaying conversations over and over in your head? Oh my gosh, if I could have a nickel for every time I did that, right? Before I reach to the point that I'm going to get to in this podcast that I hope will help you. You're playing it over, you're trying to figure out what you said wrong. Let me tell you, I've done this. You've probably done this. You've even reached out to mutual friends and you're wanting to know, did they say something about me? And you just keep circling back. You keep going around and around. And you're doing that to someone who has already moved on. That's right. They've moved on. And the reality of it is you're stuck. Or how about this one right here? You keep trying to pull closure out of people who are committed to silence, right? And when you're doing that, let me tell you the real reason why you feel you need to have closure. And I want us to get honest about why this feels so important to some of you. See, people think they need closure because they want validation. They want to feel seen. They want to feel like they mattered. They want that confirmation that they weren't wrong. And underneath all of that is this. Tell me I didn't waste my time. That's really what you want to know. Tell me I didn't waste my time. Ooh, baby. You want them to tell you that you were enough. I told you I've been there. That's why we do this. But here's the truth. The person who hurt you is rarely the one equipped to heal you. I'm going to say that again because I want that to resonate in your soul, in your spirit. The person that hurt you is rarely the one equipped to heal you. Come on now. I know it's tight, but it's right. Let me just say something that may sting for some of you, to some of you, and that is you And you alone, you're holding your growth hostage. I said it. You're holding your growth hostage. You're waiting on someone else's maturity. And if they don't have it, you stay stuck. You're right there. But let me tell you about the cost of waiting. And I'm talking about waiting for closure, right? Let's talk about what this is and what it's costing you. Because waiting for closure, it keeps you emotionally attached. It keeps you replaying the past. It keeps you second guessing yourself. Oh no, come on now. If anybody can relate, if you're streaming live, look, or put it in the comment section. Let me hear from you. But this is what happens when you are still seeking that validation, right? And it keeps you from moving forward. And here's the big one. Here's the big one, you guys. It delays your life. And we all know life is short. Tomorrow is not even promised to us. But I want you to take a look at what you are doing to yourself as you are seeking, closure, in quotes. You know, you're seeking this closure because you don't like how things ended. You don't like the ending. That's the bottom line. That's what we're talking about. And while you're waiting for answers, life is still moving. Opportunities are still passing you by. Growth, it's still available. But guess what? You're on pause. You're in timeout because you're waiting for something. Look. Real talk. This is what I've always been about. Real talk, whether people like it or not. See, some of you right now have people in your circle you're not speaking to. Okay. And instead of letting it be, as I think as my grandson would say, let it be what it be, or let it be what it is, you keep trying to fix it. You keep asking, what did I do? What happened? Why are we like this? Let me help you, please. If someone wanted to resolve it with you, now hear me when I say this, they would. We're talking about closure here, right? Closure is a myth. If someone wanted to resolve the situation with you, they would. No doubt about it. But what you need to understand is this, and this is why we're unpacking things. Silence is a decision. Come on, ladies. You hear me? Silence is a decision. Distance is a decision. Lack of communication. And I just recently had an aha moment for myself is communication. And once you sit back and you start to just process and break it down, you realize you already have your answers. You already have closure. You just didn't recognize it. And you didn't recognize it because you didn't like the ending. You didn't like how this has ended for you. No, it's real. It's raw. And in some cases, it could be painful. But at the same time, you got to get to life in. That is the reality. this is the moment I talk about in when to get up from the table, when love is not being served anymore. I talk about it because guess what? You don't want to wait for someone to explain why the table is empty. You really and truly don't. And what you got to do, you got to recognize it. Come on. You got to recognize it. And you've got to get up. That's the reality. You've got to get up. Let me take this a little deeper. What I also had to come to accept and realize is that closure is not about them. It's about you. And it's about you growing up into the person who can say, I didn't get what I deserved. That's part of growth and maturity. I didn't get the explanation. I didn't get the apology. And I'm going to say to you, so what? Because I want you to flip the script and recognize that you're choosing to move forward. You're going to move forward despite not getting an apology, not getting an explanation, not having that understanding. Why do I say that? Because that's maturity. Remember, we're in season 2. Season 1 was about the awakening. So you're woke now. But now it's about the unlearning. And in this particular women's series, just understanding that this is about maturity. This is about self-leadership, right? And when you recognize those things, you say, I've got to do something different. That's the reality of it. You must do that. So you're probably saying, okay, well, how do I create my own closure? What do I need to do? Well, so you want to know how you actually move forward is not just emotionally, but practically. That's what you must do. How you create your own closure? First of all, you got to stop seeking answers from the wrong source. I remember someone I know, her thing is always, um, you know, no response is a response. And when you really think about it, that is the truth. That's the crux of it. So stop seeking answers from the wrong source. That's the first thing you must do. Because if they couldn't show up in the relationship, they're not going to show up in the ending, right? The second thing that you must do when it comes to closure is you got to write the truth for yourself. Now, get this. When I say write the truth for yourself, what I'm saying is write not what you hoped it was, but what it actually was, what you experienced, what was missing, what didn't align. A lot of times, we miss things because just not having the self-awareness around it, right? When you recognize what was missing, what didn't align, and be honest, what you experienced, I call that your clarity. You're really clear. You're really clear. And then there's another thing that when we're talking about, the maturity piece around accepting and dealing with closure, You got to accept the behavior that you're seeing as the answer, right? You're not clueless. You see it, but you don't see it because you don't want to see it. But you got to accept the behavior that you're seeing as the answer, not the words, not the words. No, 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 no. No, talk is cheap, but the behavior. And when I talk about behavior, talk about things like inconsistency, silence, lack. Notice I put in quotes, lack of effort, right? That is the closure, ladies. That's the reality. And a fourth thing that I want you to also think about is you've got to release the need to be understood. So many of us still feel like, you know, we need to have people understand us. There are going to be some folks that will never see your perspective. Not ever. Not now. Not ever in the future. Ever. They're just, you know, they're not going to see it. And that cannot be the requirement for your peace because they don't see it, right? You must make a decision. Plain and simple. Why do I say that? Closure is a decision that says, I'm no longer available for this. I'm no longer available for this experience, right? It's really critical that you recognize and, again, pull back. We hear a lot of talk about self-care, right? Self-leadership. That all falls in line with you having clarity around your closure, right? That's important. Let me bring it all the way home for you, right? First of all, you don't need one more conversation. You don't. You don't need one more explanation. It is what it is. You don't even need one more chance. But what you need to accept what is. I hear you guys just, you're saying, oh my goodness, listen, you've got to accept what is. No doubt about it. As much as you feel like you need to get things from others, recognize this. No means no. Lack of communication, again, I'm circling back, is communication. No explanation is an explanation. Look, if you're in this space right now, and I know that there are a lot of you, you're in the space of waiting. You're in the space of reaching. How about in the space of hoping? And, I'm just going to ask you to just stop and ask yourself this. Just for a moment. Come on, just bear with me. Ask yourself this. What am I waiting for that may never come? Simple. It is. Many of us have spent lifetimes wanting, hoping, praying, believing. It's time to move on with your life. And, when you are waiting for something that's never going to come, And more, let me just say, and more importantly, let me ask you this. Ask yourself, what would it look like for you to move forward anyway? Hasn't came. You're not going to get it. Well, just for you, what would it look like if you would move forward? Right? And if you need support doing that to move forward, let me just tell you, that's the work. That's the piece. That's what I'm talking about. This is helping you release what's already over, done and done. And that's so that you can fully step into what's next. Quit holding yourself back, waiting on something that's not going to come, no matter what. Whether it's your boss, your coworker, your boo, your spouse, your kids, your friends, your whatever it is. I want you to fully step into what's next for you. That's the critical piece. That is why I say closure is a myth. You just don't like the ending. Make the change. Be the change. Quit waiting for others to come and to make your life what you feel is better. Not going to happen. Today, my goal was to unpack this. The closure is not something that others give you. It's something that you claim. That's right. You claim it. You take it back, right? You own it. And once you claim it, you stop waiting. You're going to stop circling. Oh, I love this piece. And you start moving. That's right. You start moving. I want you to quit setting yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. So until next time, I want you to keep unpacking, keep believing, keep doing the work. Yes, keep doing the work. That is the important piece. So until this time next week, guys, hang in there. If you're dealing with something that you feel you need closure on, get on with your life. Call it what it is and be done with it. I'm Gloria Bailey Ray, the Authentic Coach. Be sure and like, share, follow, download. I am all on all your top podcast platforms, and share it with someone else. Peace and blessings, everyone. God bless.